Well, this video is a recognition video or a thank you video, something like that. I'm not too sure how you would announce this video, but basically what it is, it's a thank you to Pete Talk. And he's done some significant testing over the winter months in the UK, and he's come up with some very significant results, which probably put a question mark over what I believe and maybe what other people believe. So I just want to roll that intro and have a bit of discussion about what his testing has really brought out, and not only what his testing has brought out, but what's involved with actually doing these tests and actually getting these results. Now, my background is from a testing background. So I've done quite a lot of tests, and generally what my testing used to involve is testing to Australian standards or to some standard that was around the world. And what you need to do is, in a lot of cases, is control the controls. Now, that might sound like that's just a little thing and the actual test is the main thing, but it's not. The controls are extremely important, and these are things like temperature. Mine was in a certain field where I used a lot of leads, so you have to check if the leads are the same. Are the leads thicker? Are they skinnier? Do these things affect the results? Does the temperature affect the results? Does wind affect the results? All these sorts of things that may come into the equation and give you an outcome that is biased depending on the controls, the environment that test was done in. So the controls are very, very important, and identifying if a control will have an effect is actually a big part of doing the research before you do the test. So there's quite a lot involved when you do something like a study or you do a test. I would probably call what Pete Talk's done more of a study, because it's not aligned to any type of standard or specific test formula. So when you do a study, there's a lot of involved, and it takes a lot of time, and trying to identify what can affect that result is a really big factor in doing the test. Now, we all know Pete Talk's an engineer, but even being an engineer, I mean, I've known a lot of engineers. I've worked very closely with a lot of engineers. I even currently work with a lot of engineers because this is just my hobby business, and I'm just doing this for the love of it, guys. I'm not here to make any money, and that's why I don't have any ads on here. I don't promote stuff, and I'm not sponsored. So I'm just saying what I really believe. I'm not biased to any company or any influence that may affect my information I'm giving to you guys. So when we talk about engineers, I can tell you right now, a lot of engineers wouldn't be bothered with doing this test, or wouldn't even be able to even really know how to do this test. Unfortunately, there's only a small percentage of engineers that are really motivated to explore and really dive into the nuts and bolts of engineering. A lot of people do engineering courses because they want to move from an engineering into a management position. They see that as a well-paying job and a stepping stone to move into a more higher paid job. They're not doing it because they really love engineering. And that is a unfortunate thing, because I find engineering stuff very, very interesting. But back to Pete Talk. Now, he's using a number of tools to control his test, and he's using, let me get the name right, an Aerolab CDA tester. Now, this device, these type of devices have been around for a number of years, and I'm surprised they haven't become more popular. And what they basically do is they take a number of sampling bits of information from your power and the speed and so forth, which the speed needs to be done very accurately, and they take the wind through I think it's called a pico tube. I would imagine that's the guy who invented the device or came up with the principle of the device of measuring the velocity of air coming into the pico tube. And what it does is, from this information, they can calculate your CDA. Now, why that's such a game changer on the bike is because you can go into a wind tunnel and the conditions are very controlled and set, and it doesn't really represent the real world conditions because it's an artificial environment. Even just opening a door in one of those wind tunnel tests can affect the results. It's a very, very controlled environment. And I've done tests where opening a door affects the results because of that movement of air. So the reality is that when you get a device that you can put on a bike and it's measuring it using the environmental conditions in real time, is as far as I'm concerned, as far as testing goes, is game changing. And this is what Peak Talk's done. And the information that's come out of his testing is, I believe, changing my belief, because what I would have normally believed is deeper rims and a narrower tire would have always been faster. But in this case here, he's shown that a shallower tire with a wider profile, as long as the tire and the rim match, actually is probably just as important, if not more important, than the depth of the wheel. And it's changing the way that you think about it. So that transition between the tire and the rim is a lot more important than I would have give credit to. So that's a really game-changing idea. And where I really want to thank Peak Talk is, I don't know if I would have even done the test he's done. Like I've done testing in the past, and maybe I've had testing overload, but to get out and do these type of tests take a lot of time, a lot of work, and he did them in conditions in the English winter that I can tell you right now, I wouldn't have done. And not only that, you have to keep the clothing and everything the same. So if you've done it and the temperature's dropped a few degrees, and you can't just put a gilet on because you're going to affect the test. You have to keep the same attire, the same clothes. You've got to ride the same route. You've got to look at the wind. Is the wind shifted? All these sorts of things you need to maintain and control, and see if that affects your results, because you may get a faster time. It might be because the wind has moved, and that's affecting your results, because this Aerolab CDA tester, even though it does incorporate them, there may be some variance or significant variance in the results due to the wind changing dramatically. So there's all these sort of things you need to do. And he probably would have even had to do some tests to even show that if the wind does shift, that the CDA tester is not affected. So all this stuff needs to be done to get viable results. And Peak Talk, I mean, I've watched a lot of his videos, a lot of his content, and I really just want to give him recognition for what he's done here and how it's shifted my view on the technology here around wheel technology and the aerodynamics of the wheels. And I'd like to see more of that sort of information in future. And I'd even like to see some sort of review on this Aerolab CD tester and what he's done with it to show that it does give continuous results in different conditions. But yeah, I might have to get myself one of these Aerolab CDA testers. They really are a great device to be able to control your riding if you're doing any of these sorts of testings, because if you're up a little bit higher or you're up a little bit lower, it will tell you in real time that you've moved your position, which then primarily could affect your testing because you've changed the control factor on that test. Well, anyway, guys, thank you, Peak Talk. That's really great what you've done there. And I think the summary or the outcome of this is we need to shift our thinking related to aerodynamics of wheels a little bit, and the transition of the tire to the rim is as important, if not more important, than the depth of the wheel. So having a deeper wheel with a tire that's not matched to the rim probably could be slower than a quite a low profile wheel with the tire matched to the tire. Well, anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to leave it. Leave your comments down below. What are your thoughts on Peak Talk's testing, the results that have come out of this, and let him know you want to see more of it. So, guys, that's where I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to see you next vid.